Hey everybody, this is Brianna Rudder, and in this hair tutorial, I am going to teach you how to do a natural looking lace closure sew-in step-by-step for beginners. The hair I am wearing is from Today Only, and I use a 16-inch closure and 3 18-inch bundles in the texture Brazilian Kinky Straight from Today Only. So click the link in the description to get this beautiful and very affordable hair. So for starters, you actually don't need a lot of products to pull off this look. In here, I'm showing you the hair that I received from Today Only. And when I actually pulled out the closure, I noticed that it felt extremely soft, being that this texture is more of a kinkier type of texture. The texture is perfect for those of you who are relaxed, natural, or transitioning. I have relaxed hair, but my natural roots definitely helps this style look even more realistic, being that I just had a slight little bit of edge hair left in the front. So here you see my braid pattern is very simple. All of my braids go straight down to the sides and to the back. So right now I'm just demonstrating with my fingers exactly where my part is, as well as how I have my braids going one after the other. So I'm making sure to braid about 3 braids on both sides of my head before I pass my ears, as you can see here. And I'm demonstrating with my fingers as I do a little small swoop to show you that the tail end of each braid goes into each other, so that as I continue to do it in the back, I have one tail end that I tuck onto the braid pattern. And this is how simple your braid pattern needs to be for your style. Now for me, I like to apply sometimes an oil to my hair to help encourage hair thickness. Now I have very full hair, but my hair itself is very fine, meaning that my strands are very, very small, even though I have a lot of hair. So I want to make my hair a lot thicker. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how the first bundle looks right before I sew it down. When I sew down my bundles, I like to put the needle through the very edge point of the weft, and then I like to pull it through to create a knot. This makes it very sturdy for me to attach my actual weft very easily to my braid pattern. Now to begin, I put the needle around my braid. Then I wrap the thread around the needle twice. I pull through to create my knot. As long as you got down my knotting technique, doing a sew-in will be extremely easy. So I'm just showing you once again that exact process, not moving over any more past about a 1/4 inch at a time. You want your knots to be a good distance apart so that it doesn't take you too long to sew. But you don't want your knots to be spaced no more than 1/2 inch, because it's gonna make your actual installation not as stable. So now that we're near the end, I just cut off the remaining thread and then I continue to stitch. But for now, I'm just pulling my hair up so that you can see how seamless my technique looks. Now that that first bundle is sewn, now it's time to do the flip over method. So as you can see, this is the very first track I begin stitching, and I'm going to show you how to do the flip over. The flip over is very important in preventing you from having to cut through your weft. Every time you actually cut through your weft, this causes your hair extensions to shed, and that's totally unnecessary when sewing in your bundles. So it's just smart to do the flip over to continue to go back and forth on both sides of your head without cutting through your weft. And as you can see, the flip over still allows for a very flat installation. So I've continued working my way all the way up, and I'm showing you what one bundle looks like. I know this is crazy. You're like, how full is this hair? Yes, this is one bundle. I could have easily just done 1.5 bundles for this look, so I was extremely shocked about how full the hair was. As you can see, with the flip over method, I didn't have to cut anything and it still looks very flat. So now this is the second bundle I'm showing you here, and I have a very small amount of hair left that I'm going to continue to stitch down. But before I finish stitching that down, I stopped so that I can show you how to do your closure installation. Now most women like to do their closure first and then sew in all of their bundles, but I noticed that when I do that, it causes my closure to become more tighter if I sew my bundles after sewing the closure. So I go ahead and sew in most of my bundles and then I sew my closure. So that way my closure does not have an extra tightening effect from the hair being sewn on. So now I'm just showing you the positioning that I do. I like to go a little bit past my hairline to give me a general idea of how much hair is left remaining to sew around before I begin sewing my closure. So now I'm just tying the hair into a knot so that it doesn't get in the way as I'm stitching down my closure, and I'm using a clip to help me as well. So this is how it looks so far. At this point, I've done nothing but just sprayed a little bit of water on it. Now I'm trimming off the lace. Now, it's very important that you trim off your lace right before installing it to make sure if you need extra lace space. So this is about how much lace space I need at the hairline area when I'm sewing my closures. But you may want more lace. It's all about preference. So as you can see, I'm demonstrating with my scissors where I'm going to be stitching, and I like to stitch through the hairline of my lace. And I'll show you that in just a little bit. That makes for a very natural and seamless installation to where your closure will not lift. Now we're going to start stitching the sides, and as you can see, I use very short needles and threads when I'm stitching my closure. This allows me to not have to constantly rethread my needles because they're very short, because when you have very short needles, you won't have to actually have a lot of mistakes happen with your thread knotting up. So that prevents you from having to constantly redo your needles all the time. Short needles allows for better control. So as you can see here, I'm going through the edge of my closure and I'm creating a knot so that I can secure it onto my head. Now that we're at the head, this is my very first knot I'm creating on my braid. I wrap the thread around the needle twice as usual. As you see, the same knotting technique will be throughout the entire process. Then I go ahead and secure that knot there, and I do it one more time. I always do 2 knots at the beginning and end of sewing my closure, as well as at the beginning and end of sewing any bundles. So you continue to make your knots along each braid. Now, if you wanted your knots to be a lot closer, I highly suggest that you sew down a weaving net. Some of you always wonder and ask me why I use weaving net in other tutorials and then I don't in some. It really depends on your time. I wanted to do this install just a little bit faster, and I wanted to show you an easier way of doing the process without doing all the little tiny details. Now, I have more detailed tutorials than this already on my channel on how to do a lace closure install that I recently did not too long ago. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and go through my video tabs on my actual YouTube account here so that you can see my videos. So now I'm making sure to alternate on both sides of my closure. The reason why is because it prevents your closure from looking like it's shifted. You don't want your closure looking sideways if it wasn't meant to be sewn that way. I wanted a middle part closure, so to make sure that it's actually in line and it's not sideways or shifted, you got to go back and forth with 2 needles when sewing it down. So as you can see, that's the lift in the front there, and I'm going to show you my cool technique that I love to do to make sure the front stays flat. I'm going to bring the needle back through the front edge of the closure, and then I'm going to go a little bit ways back on my perimeter braid, as you can see here, to go back through the lace. And I like to do everything going under the lace because it hides the knots a lot better. So then I just secure that in place, and I'll show you exactly how that looks after this knot. So now that it's done, you're gonna go ahead and sew around the actual back of your closure. Now, I already did a few knots at the front, but just to be safe, I made sure to add a few more because as you can see, my braids are a lot bigger. When you're doing your sewing, you can of course do your braids smaller. It just depends on how thick your hair is. So now that it's fully sewn all around, I'm gonna show you my cool technique that I like to do to make sure that the front does not lift. So now at this point, what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab your rat tail comb and you're gonna part a very thin section of hair at the very front, making sure to comb down any flyaways. So as you can see, my scalp is very visible in the very middle of my head where the hair is going away. And I'm gonna show you where I'm gonna stitch in just a second. So I like to slightly pull it down, and I like to stitch along the braids only. So as you can see, I'm pointing where I'm gonna be stitching. I will not ever stitch at the very middle section because when I make my middle part, I do not want to see thread. Now very carefully, I'm showing you how I actually do my technique when stitching through my hairline. So if you need to watch this scene multiple times, by all means, I want to make sure you got it down. So I like to go through the top of my lace. I like to scoop up some of my hair and then come back out through the lace at the very top. I like to put my knots at the top so that way it's easier for me to remove my closure when it's time for me to take down my installation. Now, I do not suggest doing this technique if you have very weak or fragile edges or if you're regrowing your edges, because this does put just a little bit of tension on, but not too much. You don't want to make your knots extremely tight. You just want to do extra knots so that way it's secure. So I'm skipping over that middle part section of my hair where my part will be. I will not be parting my hair off to the side or anything like that. It will be directly in the middle. So this technique is perfect when you only want one designated part when wearing your closure. Now you can do a similar technique to this with doing a frontal. So if you want to see something like that, let me know. And oh, by the way, if you've watched this far, I started a secret conversation in my comment section. My secret comment is pinned at the top of my comment section. So read my comment right now to join in on our secret conversation. Now that I'm fully done sewing it, as you can see, it looks extremely natural and neat. Now, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and spray down my hair so that it can blend back in with the texture, because I previously actually sprayed it so that I can tie up my closure to easily sew it down. So it just straightened out the hair just a little bit. So I just re-wet it. Now I'm defining where my part will be. And as you can see, that's my actual visible scalp there. So when I installed that closure, I did not need to bleach the roots. I did not need to add makeup. I did not need to add a nude cap. I did not even need to use Got2b Glued or any hair gel or anything like that, because my technique allows for the closure to be extremely flat near your hairline. So I just did a little bit of plucking to pull off my look so that I can tie it in all together. And as you can see, this installation is so easy to do and extremely natural. I highly suggest you ladies check out this hair. Links are in my description. And the hair is very affordable, by the way, so don't be afraid to go on over and check it out. You can get pretty much any length you want. But I decided to do a 16-inch closure with 3 18-inch bundles. And now this is the rest of the hair that I have left over, because I only needed to use about 2 bundles. So as you can see, that's it for my installation. In total, I used 1 closure and 2.5 bundles of Today Only Brazilian kinky straight hair. And as you can tell, this hair is so natural. No one even believed me that this was a weave. Everyone kept stopping me when I was going out running errands, asking me if this was my real hair. So if you're transitioning or you want to get used to more of a kinkier type of texture, I highly suggest that you give their hair a go. Their hair is perfect. Thank you for watching. Give me a thumbs up and comment what tutorials you want to see next. And by the way, I'm going to be checking on that secret conversation. Okay, so I need to see those comments. Until then, I'll catch y'all later. Bye bye.